We all thought the smiling critters were dead, but new evidence from Chapter 5 suggests that some of them are still around, and further investigations into their cardboard cutouts only makes their story make even more sense. The Smiling Critters were a group of 8 characters based on traits and morals that Elliot believed in. However, plans for these critters were what was left after he died before he could launch them. Laith Pierre was so confident in these critters that all the millions they made from Hug Huggy Wuggy were being poured into the Smiling Critters. Playtime Co. even made a whole cartoon series just to promote the show, but it all failed. The line of the toys failed because of the catnap doll causing kids intense nightmares by spewing out the red smoke instead of spewing out their scent. The show had controversy too. Kids thought it was creepy how catnap never smoked and put them to sleep at the end of the day. Now that we're all caught up, let's talk about our first critter, Catnap. Catnap by far is the most confusing and interesting lore, so let's get straight into it. The story of Catnap's bigger body starts in the orientation notebook on a report of Experiment 1186 by Bobby Bearhug. It mentions how each of these critters are good testing rounds before creating 1188 Catnap. His bigger body is more advanced than the others, so it makes sense they would create him last, so they could get the formula for critters done right. Now this brings me into what were all of the critters' experiment numbers. By using the known orders of the critters in the orientation notebook and flipping it around and making some tweaks, we get an order that matches 11886 Bobby and 1188 Catnap, Piggy 1181, Crafty Corn 1182, Kickin' Chicken 1183, Hoppy 1184, Bubba 1185, Bobby 1186, Dog Day 1187, and Catnap 1188. Now that we've covered what the experiments numbers for all the critters were, now let's dive into Chapter 3 ARG document. I can't talk. This document shows that the test subjects that the scientists believed were ideal for catnap, and we all of course know Theodore Granville would be chosen to be catnap. But before he was experimented on, a certain imaginary friend took a liking to Theo, the prototype. The prototype would hang out with Theodore, becoming his friend and manipulating him to sabotage the factory. But one day, Theo got a hold of a green hand and got in a bad accident. The prototype gave up his own freedom to alert the company's employees to Theo's location, saving his life. It was from this day on Theo would be fully devoted to the prototype, becoming his most loyal follower. After turning into a bigger body, Theo would begin conditioning like all the other experiments before being assigned to their job. Catnap would be conditioned for 49 days in total, and by the end being deemed a success after referring to himself as Catnap in his eyes, lighting up white and escaping containment and injuring multiple people. And after he was put to work, he followed the prototype around like a puppy. It is believed that the prototype got catnapped to spread the word about the hour of joy. And if you watched my last video, then you will know that I believe catnap had a connection with the nightmare critters. As in my previous video, I discussed briefly the fact that the nightmare critters, along with catnap, may have hunted the rest of the critters who didn't follow the prototype. Catnap, after the hour of joy, would work for the prototype by guarding Playcare to keep his intruders out. He eventually passed in the hands, or dare I say, spear, of the prototype. He got down on his knees, though, knowing he had failed, and that the prototype would find another use for him. Bobby Bearhug was at first deemed a failure, as she couldn't stand up or hear and her voice box wouldn't work, but after further experimentation, they got her working, but she wasn't liked by the other critters. This led her to side with the prototype and catnap and participate in the hour of joy, but stay loyal to the prototype. We hear her talk to Giblet in an audio tape in Chapter 5. Piggy. In Chapter 3, most of the information we have on her is from her cardboard cutout, and here real quick are all the voice lines.
Hi there, I'm Piggy. Let's eat. Roast beef, delicious. Grilled chicken, down the hatch.
One of her lines implies that after hunting down or finding the bodies of the critters she ate to survive. And we never hear her scream at the end of the cutout, so it's implied she's still around, possibly as one of the prototype's hunters that we might see in Chapter 6. Like Picky Piggy, most of the information we get about Crafty Corn is from her cardboard cutout. Here are all the lines. Just kidding, though. I'm only going to show you a picture. That takes too long. I'd like to direct your attention to this line. This line heavily implies she got rid of the critters, leading back to my last video where I mentioned how Crafty Corn might have joined Catnap the Nightmare Critters with getting rid of the critters that didn't follow the prototype. For Chapter 6, she might even be one of the prototype's hunters. Dog Day was the leader of the Smiling Critters in the show, but he was one of the main leaders in the rebellion, and from his cardboard cutout, he orchestrated the move to leave Playcare and got Hoppy Hopscotch and possibly Kickin' Chicken and Bubba out of Playcare. He wasn't so lucky, though, as Catnap got him and locked him up in the playhouse. We have a chase in Chapter 3 where the mini critters eat him, but it isn't known if he's still wandering to this day or not. She was one of the many experiments who participated in the Hour of Joy, but she rebelled afterwards and escaped Playcare, unlike Dog Day. She lived a natural life until a year before the player arrived, and it's unknown if she died from natural causes or an injury. In an audio tape in Chapter 5, we hear she was one of the many experiments banging on Miss Gracie's door. Kickin' Chicken, one of the many, participated in the Hour of Joy. We know he joined the rebellion with Hoppy and Dog Day after, though. He is hurt in his cardboard cutout, trying to escape, but Catnap gets him. We also know he was one of the experiments banging on Miss Gracie's door in Chapter 5, along with Hoppy and Baba. Little is known about Bubba, but in his cardboard cutout, he says he wants to remember. He says, want to remember what I know about you, and then he screams. This implies he was part of the rebellion with Dog Day, not he died to Catnap or a Nightmare Critter in some way. Well, I hope you all enjoyed my breakdown, and as always, like and subscribe. You can always unsub, and see y'all later.